Well, hello again. My name is John Smith. Welcome to Kingdom Real. And today I'm going to be interviewed again by my daughter, Sarah, and I don't know what she's going to ask, but I'm sure it's going to be fun.
It'll be fun for sure. All right. Well, thank you for joining me today.
You're welcome.
I'm kind of having a lot of fun with this hosting thing and
I
asking
can see
you
that.
questions. Kind of like when you have little kids interview their parents, you know.
Yes.
Kind of how I feel a little bit, except
Awesome.
as an adult. All right. So today, what I would like to talk to you about is in our last episode, you mentioned that, you know, when you were a kid, you wanted to be a pilot.
Right.
I don't remember you saying you wanted to be a pastor.
I didn't.
So if you didn't always want to be a pastor since you, you know, were born, kind of where did that all change? Where did that come in? When did you get the call? Just kind of tell me that story.
Okay. Well, it's kind of a funny story because you had asked how long Mommy and I dated before we got engaged, and I think it was about 3 months, and we were looking at diamonds and all this kind of stuff and found it really cool and we both really liked. And then just before we went through with that, and I didn't let her know when I was going to purchase it, wanted to have some surprises and so on, but one night we were talking, she says, "I just want you to promise me you'll never become a pastor."
Okay.
That was kind of the condition to get engaged.
Yep.
And so I go on, well, I said, I can't make a promise like that, but you have nothing to worry about. It was not on my radar. We were both committed to Christ, committed, you know, followers of Jesus, but being a pastor, that just wasn't something that I thought about. And we had pastors that we really liked and pastors that I didn't like so much. And so anyway, so you might wonder, well, why would she say that? Because her dad is a pastor. He was my pastor. They came at the start of her senior year of high school, and we were friends for 3 years before we started dating, and then things moved kind of fast. So we went ahead and got engaged. In fact, do you have any idea what day of the month and week your dad would choose to give your mom her diamond?
Like on a Tuesday?
Oh, no, that would be way too plain.
Too plain. Oh, dear.
It was October 13th, a Friday. So I gave your mom a diamond on Friday the 13th just to show that I don't deal with this superstition stuff, and we're going to prove that has nothing to do with it. It's not bad luck. It's great luck. And I think she would agree that most of the time.
Okay.
Some of the times, like, what was I thinking when I said yes?
Awesome.
So, right after we get engaged, and I don't make this promise, but I tell her she has nothing to worry about, it was right after that I started getting this internal prompting in my heart, in my spirit. Hard to figure out any other way, but just kind of God saying, I want you to come and serve me as a pastor. And I'm going, no, I can't do that. You know, there's a lot riding on this. You remember that little conversation that we had? This isn't going to go. And so I was just running from it. Didn't really want to do it. And, well, he didn't quit. So he just kept this, I don't know how to describe it other than this small voice inside just saying, that's what I want you to do. And I fought it. And then he started having the pastor on Sunday during the message say, is God calling you into full-time service? Not just once, but several weeks in a row. I had I think 2 different youth group leaders came up to me and says, you ever thought about becoming a pastor? And I go, no. Kind of lied a little bit. And so finally one Sunday I thought, okay, I can't take this anymore. I'm going to another church. And so I did, and wouldn't you know, that pastor did the same thing at some point in his message. God might be calling you into ministry. It's like, oh my goodness. So finally I had to, well, I'll go talk to the associate pastor and ask him, what was your story? How do you know? And so he kind of, went through his whole process with me, and that made sense. it was still strong. I still couldn't get away from it. So finally I went and talked to her dad, my pastor. And I said, how do you know? And he had a similar journey. He was in business for 10 years with his dad. He was an only child, and he was planning on taking over the business. And when it came, he fought it. He avoided it. His mom didn't like the idea because she thought, he'd get sent to Africa or something. And so what happened to him is finally he resisted it long enough that God said, okay, and he removed the sense of call. And that became the worst experience in his life. And so finally he surrendered. And through all that process, it was like, okay, I guess I better have a conversation with Sue. And I didn't know what she was going to do or where I was going to go. And a few months had passed now. And when I actually brought up the subject, it was clear that God had been working on her heart too, that she was at least open to consider the possibility. We prayed about it probably a couple of months together and finally decided to surrender and say, okay, that's what I'll do.
So if you weren't a pastor at this point, what do you think you would be? Had you just kind of gone la 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 and like totally ignored the call, where do you think you'd be?
I really don't know. I might have gone into business, might have gone into sales, at one point I was working for a furniture and carpeting home furnishing store, and he was talking about expanding and starting a new store, and I was open to, kind of doing that. Probably something in that area, probably something with people, something relating, connecting. But beyond that, I'm not sure.
So, did you have to make any big life changes in order to go the direction of becoming a pastor?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we did. Because I was actually, that whole idea of this furniture store was what I was doing. So I started off to be an airline pilot and started classes at Western Michigan University. And then some other stuff happened. That didn't work out. So anyway, I came back. I was going to go to just a 2-year junior college. It was cheaper. I was paying my own way. Thought I'll just do that. And when the decision came to become a pastor in the church that I grew up in was part of a denomination that required a 4-year college degree and then a 3 or 4-year seminary degree. That was the path that you would go down. And I don't know, I didn't even think about going with somebody else. That's what I grew up in. That's all I knew. So I had to transfer from the junior college to the university. And what I discovered was that a lot of the classes I've been taking on sales and management and marketing and all that, those were like junior level classes, 3rd year. And because I took them in my 2nd year, sophomore year, they wouldn't so I lost 40 credit hours in the transfer. And so when I talked about being a little crazy and very much a workaholic, I was working full-time, going to school more than full-time, so that I did 3 years of college in 2 years. And we were married during that time. But the funniest part, I think, was her mom was so organized that she had everything planned out, and she already had the wedding invitations and the wedding napkins printed, because we had picked a date of October 21st, a Friday night. So it was going to be October 21st, thought to be kind of fall wedding. We were both 21 years old, so I thought, oh, that's cool, that really works. Until I thought I was going to be done with college, now I'm going to be back in college. I go, that wouldn't be very much fun to be in college, to get married and have a 1-day honeymoon or something. And so we changed our wedding date to August 17th. And for several years, we had the joy of using napkins that said October 21st on it because we had a lot of leftovers.
That's fantastic. Those are good memories.
Yeah, fun times.
I love it. So speaking of memories, what was the first position that you accepted outside of seminary? Like when you graduated, where did you work first?
Yeah. Well, senior year of seminary, you were, by the time we got to the you're 6, 7 months old. But we prayed that dangerous prayer. Lord, we'll go anywhere you want us to go. And I was at the seminary, and they had this posting where the churches that were looking for a pastor could send in, a profile, and then you could sign up if you wanted an interview, or you could contact them or something like that. So this one came on, and it was looking for an associate pastor, and it was a church in New York. And I read the description, and it's the only church description that I've ever seen at that point and never seen since, where they actually wrote in their expectations for the pastor's wife.
Interesting.
Absolutely amazing. I have never seen that before, and all these years later, I've never seen it since. So they had this great thing. They said, our expectation for the pastor's wife is that she's a committed follower of Jesus Christ, and she will use her gifts in the service of the Lord in whatever way fits best, just like any other member of the church. I thought, okay, this could be a safe, good place for her to be in that kind of a role. So I signed up for the interview. And there were 8 of us that signed up, but only 7 of us got interviewed. Because one friend looked at that again and says, Long Island? New York? I don't want to go there. He crossed his name off. I still remember it. I thought, wow. And went through the whole process, and that's where we ended up serving. Long Island, New York.
All right.
And I was the associate pastor. And it was the first time they had an associate pastor position. They'd had a minister of youth and education before that. So it was the first time I was an associate pastor, and that was my first position.
So does that mean you kind of got to help develop what that role was at the church? Or did they already have a set expectation for you when you got there?
They had a set expectation. So it wasn't like, hey, we got this idea. What would you like to do? It was, they laid out. So I was in charge of all the youth ministry and a lot of the pastoral care and visitation. And I was in charge of different parts of the education program, and I was in charge of preaching every Sunday in the evening service. So actually, it was more than one position, but I didn't know any better, and it just seemed like, so that's what I did.
That's great. So how did your wife feel about moving across the country?
She felt a lot better about it than my mom and my sister did.
Okay.
When I accepted the call, we were actually at their house in Kalamazoo. I was down in the basement where they had this extra phone, and I think it was like around Easter or something like that. And so I accepted the call, and next thing I know, there's my mom and my sister bawling their eyes out and weeping and like, oh no, I can't believe it. It's like, I wasn't expecting that reaction. So Sue, I think, was actually open for more of an adventure. But what really caught us both was the genuine love and acceptance of the people. And they brought us there. One part of the process was a 4-day on-site interview. And it was just meet with this group, meet with this group, meet with this group. And it was amazing. It was wonderful. And we built friendships with those people just in these few days, and we couldn't quite imagine doing life without those relationships. So actually, I think she was pretty open to doing something different like that. And I think frankly, she thought if I took a position in a church close by, I might become too dependent and stay too dependent, like on parents and family and all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, that was what we did.
So most of your family on both sides live in Michigan?
Everybody's in Michigan, and we were the black sheep that bolted and left and moved 800 miles away, and would rarely, if ever, be home for holidays or birthdays or anniversaries or all those special things you do as a family. And I think in all those years, we only made it home for Christmas once. And that was hard. So we would we would make and get gifts in advance and box them up and send them back, and they would send gifts to us. So that's how we did Christmas. Mm-hmm. But it made Christmas very special for our immediate family. That was one of the things that was really cool. That I have a lot of good memories about that.
Oh yeah, me too. Yeah. Some that we have continued in with our own family. So how long were you at New Life in New York?
I was there exactly 23 years. So I started on the 24th of June, 1979. I ended on the 24th of June, 2002. So I was able to kind of choose my end date. Mm-hmm. I thought, that'd be really cool.
Yeah.
To make it exactly 23 years, not, a little before, a little after. And so that's what we did. And that's a fun memory for me.
That's fantastic. So were you excited and full of passion for the ministry and the work the whole entire time you were there?
Most of the time, yes. But there were periods of time that it was the only thing that kept me there was a strong sense that God called me there. And he made it so clear that that was where he wanted me to go that I made a promise the day I started, I will never leave until you tell me to, until God told me to. In fact, I won't even consider another possibility until you make it clear that I'm supposed to leave. Then I'll look. Because one of the things that happens to a lot of pastors is other churches, mm-hmm. after you've been there for a while, say, hey, how about coming to us? And all these kinds of things. And I would routinely say, when somebody contacted me, don't send me any information because I'm not going to look at it. And don't come out and visit because I'm not going to talk to you. It's going to be a waste of your time and your money, my time and effort. And I'm not saying it's wrong to do it the other way. That's just what worked for me. Mm-hmm. And it kept me focused on where God had me. And I wasn't always thinking about what was over here and what was over there. I was fully engaged the whole time. But there were points where I went through some really painful, difficult times where everything inside me wanted to leave, wanted to run, wanted to get away, wanted to hide. But I couldn't. It was a strong sense of calling, and he hadn't released me, so I didn't leave.
So it sounds like, from what you've shared so far, that the sense of calling is very, very strong in your life. It has been pretty much since the beginning of your ministry.
Yes.
That is, it's very, very clear. It's
Mm-hmm.
very, very strong. You tried to run from it for a little while in the beginning.
At the beginning.
But yeah, that seems to be a kind of a common theme.
It is. I guess I'd put it in these words. Once I surrendered and embraced his call in my life, I was all in. I never just dabbled in it. I went all in. Hook, line, and sinker, both feet, whatever expression you want to use. I was all in, and that part has never changed. The joy factor changed a bunch based on some things that happened, but the sense of calling, it's hard to describe if you haven't had it. But when you do, you know. In fact, I coach people when they're thinking that maybe they're called. I'll always say, okay, be really sure.
Right.
If you don't know that you know that you know that you know that you know you've been called, you won't last. Mm-hmm. Or you'll last for the wrong reasons. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes the only thing you can hold on to is that God called me to do this. And somehow he'll provide what I need. He'll get me through this, whatever it's going to be. But sometimes that's all that's left. And if that isn't really strong at the beginning, I wouldn't advise you to go into it.
So, kind of an odd question, but was there a point that Mom wanted to leave and was asking you to leave? And if she ever actually said, can we leave, would you have done that?
I don't recall her ever saying she wanted to leave. If she did, that would have been a really tough choice, but I probably would have.
Yeah.
But I don't remember that she ever got to that point of wanting to leave. She got to points of not wanting to be there, but never expressed it like, you need to quit and we need to go do something else.
Well, I just wonder, in the marriage vows, and then you have vows like a marriage with God. And so, for people that might be in that similar situation,
absolutely.
How do you discern that? How do you decide what is more important, or, is it that you go with your spouse and then, hope that God, kind of values that choice?
If it had ever come to that point, I would have left ministry, because I really believe that in a sense, God called us.
Right.
Not that called her to be a pastor, but I couldn't do it without her support. She was the most faithful, loyal, encouraging supporter I've ever had, and she still is. She was always my biggest fan. She was always my biggest encourager, and she still, to this day, will talk about the good times and how amazing some of the things we did, and some of the musicals we put on, and all the different things that were part of it, and she loved my preaching, which was very encouraging. And there were times that I was wondering, she really loved. Well, it doesn't get any better than when your wife really values who you are and what you're doing. And so I was really, really blessed with that.
It's a really rare thing, and especially to have it for almost half a century.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
It absolutely is. It's way beyond what I deserve.
We get a lot of more than what we deserve most of the time. So talk about a turning point that might have happened in New York. Was there ever a moment where it went from like, oh, I'm really enjoying this, to, what is even going on right now? And there might be multiple ones, but just talk about a significant turning point in your ministry.
There were multiple ones, but there's one that stands out in my mind as the biggest one, the most significant, devastating, and it started with a letter. It was a letter that I opened at my office, and it was addressed. I recognized the name, and it was a person that I thought was a close friend. And at this point, I'm there just a few weeks shy of 20 years. So this is a person I've invested 20 years of my life in ministry into, that I thought we were friends, her and her husband and her family and her extended family. And I opened this letter, having no idea what's in it. And I started reading through it. And it started, I'm writing this on behalf of a whole group of people. I go, oh, okay. And as I remember, it was 3 pages typed. I think it was even single-spaced. And there wasn't one positive statement about me in the whole letter. It was just, you didn't do this right, and you made this change, and you did this, and on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And it was like, oh my goodness, I had no idea. So I just kept reading, like, wow. So, but fortunately, the person, she signed her name. Some people write letters like that and they make it anonymous, which is just such a cowardly, unbiblical, unchristian thing to do. If it had been that way, I probably would have just thrown it away, even though it would have bothered me. But after I finished reading the letter, first thing I did was I picked up the phone and I called her. I said, wow, I had no idea. Why don't you get your group of people together and let's talk this out? That was the first thing I did. So it was a Friday afternoon. And next day, Saturday, I started getting phone calls from some of my elders and some of my deacons like, what are we going to do about this letter? I said, what are you talking about? Well, come to find out, I wasn't the only one she sent the letter to. She ended up sending it to every elder, every deacon, denominational officials. It was basically an attempt to get me removed as the senior pastor of the church. And so they said, well, don't you dare meet with that group alone. Everything that they're upset about in the letter are all decisions we made as a board. This is our battle, not yours. We need a special meeting Sunday night after church to decide what we're going to do. So I'm going, okay. And yeah, how much more of that do you want to hear?
Well, my next question is, what was your darkest moment?
The darkest moment happened about 11 days later. And the result of the board meeting after church was that they wanted me to come to the meeting but not say anything, not lead the meeting like I normally would, because these were their issues, their decisions, so they were going to handle it. And I thought, wow, that's really great leadership. But inside, I've got this battle going on because I'm going, well, wait a minute. I'm the senior pastor. I'm the president of the board. I officiate at meetings like that. I don't really like conflict, but I'm not going to run from it. And the whole story isn't being told here. But they kind of insisted that was the way to do it. So I said, okay. And we get to that Monday night, and the meeting's held in the fellowship hall. And it's packed with people. There's at least a couple hundred people there, maybe more. And I'm just sitting kind of up in the frontish area with the others, and Mommy was somewhere out in the crowd. And for the next 3 hours, one person after the next, 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 got up and shared all the things that they didn't like about me as a pastor, didn't think I did well enough, things I did wrong, things I should have done that I didn't do. And some people, well, there's a couple people I thought they were so angry that, the veins are like popping out of their neck and their faces all red. They're just yelling, going, oh my goodness. And others would just kind of wax eloquently about all these things, but still, jab like that. And probably, I don't know, at least 80% or more ended by saying, but we love you.
All right, so I'm going to stop you right there and tune in next time to hear the rest of the story.